Sorry, just took a drink of coffee. I'm not sure what I want to talk about, but what I did notice, and I guess this is actually, I know exactly what I'm going to talk about. Yesterday, talk about politics. Yesterday was the anniversary of 9/11, and it's sort of like in the 1960s, the baby boomers. You ask them, where were you when you heard that President Kennedy was shot? And everyone could tell you. And on 9/11, most everyone else, in my generation, Generation X, as well as millennials, and as well as baby boomers, because they experienced it as well, but everyone who was living at the time, if you ask them today and say, what were you doing when you heard that the planes hit the towers, you knew exactly what you were doing. And for me personally, I was actually at work, and we were in a meeting, and this one woman got a phone call. It was like 9:15, 9:30 in the morning. I don't know what time it was, but it was around then, 9:15 in the morning. And she's like, "Oh my God, really?" And then there was a pause. You could tell she was listening to the other person on the other end. And she's like, "Okay, well, just let me know." And she hung up the phone, and she's like, "My husband never calls me unless my son or daughter, and have to go to the hospital." So I was worried. But he said that the World Trade Center got hit by a plane. And I live in Baltimore, and downtown Baltimore there is a World Trade Center building, and that's what it's called. And so I thought she was talking about that World Trade Center. I said, "Really?" And I said, "The one in Baltimore?" She's like, "Oh no, the one in New York, the one of the Twin Towers." And I thought, wow. I said, what kind of plane was it? And everyone was thinking it was like a twin-engine prop plane or some sort of small plane, and some pilot didn't know what he was doing, or that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, someone came into the room and said, "Did you hear the towers got hit, plural?" And I said, "Well, we heard that the World Trade Center got hit." He's like, "Yeah, both towers." And then that's when we went into the conference room where it was kind of a .com style company at the time, and we went into one of the game rooms they had with a pool table and arcade, and there was a big screen TV, and everyone in the company, which is a small company, it was only about 50, 60 employees, everybody was glued to the TV. So it was pretty amazing. So that's what I was doing that day. But I figured I'd just spend a moment to reminisce about that specific day. I know a lot has changed since 9/11, and I'll take a drink of coffee again. I'm going to drink it while it's hot, of course. A lot has changed since that day. And what I really find sad is the fact that on that day, and the days after, the United States was brought together like I've never seen before. It was really touching. I mean, I remember at work, people were more kind. There was no hidden agendas. Even for a few months after 9/11, I just realized that work was just different. It felt different. People were acting differently. And I remember going to the store, the Borders or Barnes & Noble, and the top music at the time was music like, I don't know if this is the ones, but it's similar to, it was Enya. It was, Andre Bocelli. It was opera. It was classical music. It was music that soothed the soul. And I thought that was kind of interesting. You fast forward 7 years later, and we're in the middle of a war, 2 wars, Afghanistan and Iraq. The nation's divided probably more than I've ever seen it. Though I know, talking to my dad, he says that, pretty much every election that he remembers has always been pretty divided in terms of Democrats and Republicans. But it seems more divided now than ever. And it's just funny how 7 years things can change. And I'm not going to say which way of the fence I lean on. I may do that later. But out of respect for those of 9/11, I'm just going to kind of keep that to myself now. I'm sure I'll talk politics later. But anyway, it was an incredible day when the towers were hit, when the Pentagon was hit, and when the heroes aboard, I can't remember, United Flight 93, I think it was, took down the plane that was headed for either the White House or the Capitol building. It was just one of those days, and I think that it's a day that we'll all remember, and it's one of those days that I know I personally will never forget, and I hope it never happens again, though I fear something will, because we're all human, and humans seem to have a natural tendency for war. If you disagree with me, just look at human history, and I think that is quite obvious. So anyway, those are my thoughts on 9/11. It's actually the day after 9/11, but I figured I'd give my thoughts nonetheless, even though it's belated. So I'm going to sign off for now, and I'm going to pick it up a little bit later as I continue on my trek, my 4-hour journey, as it were.